First, we begin with breaking news in the Middle East. Israel has carried out strikes in Qatar targeting senior Hamas leaders in the capital city of Doha. It is the first time Israel has struck inside Qatar. Israel is calling the attack the summit of fire. It comes as efforts to end the war in Gaza continue. Doha has been the base of the Hamas negotiating group, and Hamas confirmed to the BBC its delegation was the target of the attacks. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar issued an immediate warning to U.S. citizens there. We have seen reports of missile strikes occurring in Doha. The U.S. Embassy has instituted a shelter-in-place order for their facilities. U.S. citizens are advised to shelter in place and monitor social media for updates. So let's go now to CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio in London for us today. Remy, thank you for joining us. What can you tell us at this time?
Mugo, yeah, good to see you. Quickly developing here, we're getting fresh lines from Israeli military radio as to the details of how this operation unfolded. According to IDF radio, this operation has in fact been planned for several months. The IDF saying that over the course of the past several months, through these on again and these off again attempts for a ceasefire and for negotiations to release those hostages, they say that Hamas, quote, has shown more rigidity regarding the deal. And so Israel, again, a quote here, decided to accelerate the battle procedure. The operation, they say, involved 15 fighter jets that took part in the attack, 10 munitions that targeted within a few seconds. And they say that only one target was attacked and that their pilots all landed safely in Israel. Now, as I've said that, it appears also that Hamas is saying that something slightly different to Saudi media. They say that Israeli warplanes struck one house. It's the home of one of the leaders, one of the senior leadership members of Hamas. His name is Khalil al-Hayya. He's also been the chief negotiator in the ceasefire and hostage negotiations. They say that they targeted his house as well as a nearby house, but it was his house that was specifically targeted, focused on. There are conflicting reports right now, Mugo, on whether he was killed, whether he was assassinated. Hamas says that he did survive that attempt, but other media say that he was, in fact, killed. There are reports out saying that there are other people, other Hamas leadership that were also in that house, talking about the most recent proposal coming out from Israel and from the United States. We do not know, and we cannot confirm any other names at this time, but it is understood that at least one name has been floated out there. And of course, we will get more names if and as they come.
And Remy, I understand we're still working to iron out some of the information here that's coming out of this attack and if there are possibly any casualties. But we're talking about senior Hamas leaders here. So it brings up the question, if you're going after those senior leaders, what impact could this possibly have on efforts to get a ceasefire in the first place?
Absolutely. If you take out the people who you are ostensibly trying to mediate with, then who will you talk to? And then that leaves the open question of what becomes of this ceasefire and hostage negotiation from here on out. From what we are gathering, what we're understanding is that they were talking about these latest proposals. The most recent proposal that we had heard from Israeli media that came from the White House, it came from President Trump, is that there was the attempt, if you will, to release all 48 hostages still believed to be held in Gaza. That includes both those who are alive and dead. That would have been in exchange for potentially thousands of Palestinian prisoners. But again, to your question, these are uncharted waters. We do not know what will happen here if Israel, if the United States want to try to carry on with some kind of negotiations. Also to that point, Qatar, which has been one of the mediating countries along with Egypt, they have said that they are now suspending all talks, all negotiations for the foreseeable future. So even if anyone wanted to talk, at least one of the two main negotiating partners has said not right now.
And Ramy, I heard in your reporting there as you were speaking that this attack had been planned for some time, for months. But then does it come as a surprise? I assume it was a surprise for Qatar, obviously as a surprise as well for those senior Hamas leaders.
Yes, well, the plans, of course, if they are to be believed, having been developed over the past several months, would obviously not be made public. But it does appear very much so that this has caught the region off guard. In terms of condemnations that have come out fast and furious over the past 15, 20 minutes, I'll read these out to you. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and perhaps no surprise to our viewers, Iran here. I do want to say that Kuwait, the UAE, as well as Jordan, have recognized Israel, have normalized relations with Israel in the past several years. So these are from potentially, you could say, recently recognized allies, now very much angry, I think is the appropriate word here, in terms of what appears these governments have been caught out for these attacks and these explosions that we've been seeing in Doha.
Moments ago, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed this. He was over at the U.S. Embassy's Independence Day event. Let's listen.
Now, much of the world, including much of the democratic world, or governments at least, have shamefully forgotten October 7th. But I don't forget, and Israel will never forget. Never. There was a time when Jews could be murdered with impunity, but since the founding of the State of Israel, those days are over. On this day, as in previous days, Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action. And this action can open the door to an end of the war in Gaza. Israel has accepted the proposals put forward by President Trump to end the war, beginning with the immediate release of all our hostages, which have been held in the dungeons of Gaza for 700 days. If President Trump's proposal is accepted, the war can end immediately. We can begin once again to pursue the expansion of peace in our region for the benefit of all. But I want to close by directing my words to the people of Gaza. Don't be derailed by these murderous terrorists, by these killers. They don't care a hoot about you. They live in sumptuous villas. You can't imagine how sumptuous. Away from this battle scene. Their partners in Gaza don't worry about you. They go to the underground tunnels and they keep you above ground so you serve as human shields for them. Don't be derailed by these killers. Stand up for your rights and for your future. Make peace with us. Accept President Trump's proposal. Don't worry. You can do it, and we can promise you a different future. But you've got to take these people out of the way. If you do, there is no limit to our common future. Thank you.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. So let's bring in CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd. Sam, always great to talk to you. The U.S. was informed, but not a part of that strike. Netanyahu made that very clear. But what does that mean for the United States and its role there in the Middle East?
Well, even if the United States was not directly coordinating with Israel on this attack, it is likely that various actors in the region, including terrorist groups, may consider the U.S. at least complicit in this strike in Qatar. For that reason, it is likely that the United States, in order to protect American personnel, is monitoring intelligence, monitoring chatter on the internet and social media to try to ensure that there are no reprisal strikes against Americans in the region or here at home. If we broaden the aperture read and look longer term, it is a real question as to whether Arab nations in the region, Qatar, and then the countries that Israel currently has diplomatic agreements with via the Abraham Accords, choose to sever diplomatic relations with Israel and or engage in some kind of retribution against Israel for their actions, at which point the United States will be placed in a position of trying to mediate an end not just to the Israel-Gaza conflict, but a broader conflict among regional players.
Well, and you raise an important point because the U.S. does have large military operations, a base there. If I have a son or a daughter there and serving, should I be concerned about their safety?
Well, the United States does have about 10,000 soldiers at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. But I am not just concerned about Americans on a military base. There are also hundreds of thousands of American citizens in the region. Many of them are dual citizens. And it is always a concern in a situation like this that terrorist groups choose to strike against softer targets than a military base to try to get back at the United States based on a perception that the United States was involved in some way in the strike by Israel in Qatar.
And thus the reason why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be wanting to draw a very big line between the United States and Israel, saying Israel owns this one. Sam, it's always great to talk to you. I appreciate it so much.
Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Regarding the Israeli strike in Doha, how much time or how much of a heads up did the U.S. get, and does the president support the strike?
Sure. Well, I have a statement to read for all of you with respect to the Israeli strike in Doha, and here it is. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
Clear, the president disagrees with the location of the strike, and that he passed that along to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
The president just confirmed that in the statement that I just read to you, which I spoke with him about before coming out here. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. So is the president upset with Netanyahu now?
The president made his thoughts and concerns about this very clear, and he spoke again both to Prime Minister Netanyahu and also the Emir and the Prime Minister of Qatar after this attack. And the president has always made it very clear that he wants peace in the Middle East, just like he sought that and accomplished that in his first term. He expects all of our allies and friends in the region, that includes both Qatar and Israel, to seek peace as well. And he wants to see that happen, and he's working with all of our allies in the region to get that done.
Are there any consequences, so to speak, for Netanyahu doing this, as it sounds, against the president's wishes, or at least his belief that it was appropriate? Is there going to be any directive from the president to Netanyahu in terms of what's allowed in the future? And also, is there any concern this could jeopardize the Abraham Accords?
Look, that's a decision only the president can make. With respect to your first question, to answer your second question, as you heard from the president, he said he believes that this can serve as an opportunity for peace, and he's still actively and aggressively pursuing it with all of our allies and partners in the region. Jennifer.
Just to follow up on that, Caroline, are you able to say how often the president spoke to the Prime Minister of Israel before this? Because that's one question. And then what did he mean on Sunday when he posted, "I've given my last warning to Hamas," etc.? He wasn't talking about this strike on Doha?
No, he was not. As I told you, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas, and the president spoke to the Prime Minister after the attack, as well as, again, the Emir and the Prime Minister of Qatar. And I know Secretary Rubio and Special Envoy Witkoff were present for that call with the Qataris as well.
And for more, let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us today. As we heard there, the Trump administration was informed about these strikes as they were happening. What more do we know?
Yeah, Nancy, we're still putting together the timeline and details on this. But from what we learned from the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is that the U.S. military learned about this attack before it happened, informed President Trump and the administration, and that President Trump then directed special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, to alert the Qataris that this attack was coming. We do not know for sure if the U.S. military was informed by the Israelis about this attack or if they learned about it through other measures. And in that statement from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, I thought it was really notable how she said that strikes on Qatar, a close ally of the United States that is working with them in an intermediary sense to try and end the war between Israel and Hamas, that attacking them does not advance Israel's or U.S. goals. We also learned that after the attack, President Trump did talk to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but all that Caroline Leavitt will reveal about that is that the Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants peace quickly, and that President Trump said he believes that this, quote, unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace.
Aaron, I was going to ask you about that. As you mentioned, this very close relationship between the United States and Qatar, especially when it comes to ending the war in Gaza. What happens to that relationship now?
Yeah, it's something to watch. We learned that President Trump, in addition to calling Netanyahu, also talked to the president or the emir and prime minister of Qatar after the attack. And from Caroline Leavitt, she said that Trump assured them that it would not happen again. An attack on their soil would not happen again, though she did not give details on what exactly that means. She also said that the president overall views Qatar still as a strong ally of the United States and feels, quote, very badly about the location of this attack. That was something that they focused on during this press briefing at the White House, the location in the capital of Doha, though they did say that eliminating Hamas is, quote, a worthy goal of Israel.